Back with a special edition of Inside Tennessee. Robin, we're focused on something that had this community's attention for almost a week, and that is this shooting involving Blount County deputies. One deputy was killed, another was wounded, and we do have a suspect in custody.
That's right, and there was an extensive investigation and the manhunt that went on for 5 days. Marshall, we talked to you about technology and how it factors into an investigation. Don, from your perspective in the legal world, technology is vital.
Sure,
from what you can see.
I've been doing what I've been doing for 35 years, and so when I started, the fax machine was a new device, and so and so now, technology, there are things out there that I probably don't even know about, but as a defense lawyer, we often see, on the backside of a case, how a client may have been, or how a subject or a defendant may have been located and found. Obviously, cell phone technology is a big part of today, and tracking and being able to pinpoint where somebody is by use of cell phones. But it is surprising the tools and the technology available. But like David said, like Marshal Jolley said, just good old street work of knocking on doors and talking to people will often yield, at least, narrow it down. I always say there's a barber shop or two in Knoxville that I can go to, and they can pretty much tell me where anybody's at if I need to find a witness. And literally just talking to people. But that coupled with technology, I'm sure that Knox County loaned their helicopters and use those effectively, and we've got infrared technology to track where bodies are and to see. We just I think earlier this week there was a deputy in Meigs County that was on a tragic accident into a lake, and they were able to find his body using sonar, and so it's a combination of science. But like Marshal Jolley said, it really is talking to people. What did you see? What did you hear? Even if it's rumor, it can often lead to finding somebody and where they're at.
Yeah, that communication, and that's what they were counting. There's a $100,000 reward put out there. Marshall, we're understanding, though, that no one will get that reward. At least that's what we have heard up to this point.
That's correct. There was no tip that came in that put us on the location of Kenneth DeHart, which was surprising. When you have that much money involved, that's we probably would have lost a bet on that one. That but the average citizen is going to do the right thing and turn people in, regardless of whether there's money or there's no money. That usually only sways somebody who is very close to the suspect, who may have a thought about, wow, that's a lot of money, and
And Marshall, you were saying off camera, and I think we all thought it was good perspective. This manhunt was intense, one of the largest we've seen in East Tennessee in recent memory. It was over 5 days, and that's a long time for a community to be on edge. But in perspective, this was a relatively short hunt.
Correct. 5 days is not a long period of time when it comes to manhunts. Sometimes they go weeks, months. I've been involved in fugitive investigations that went on for years sometimes before we found the person, So 5 days in the grand scheme of things is not a lengthy investigation, but in a very high profile case that's out in the news every single moment of the day, like this one was, 5 days is a lengthy period of time. But and even for us all in the command post, all the teams working together, there's people even we're starting to get a little antsy after 5 days, but the collaboration between all of the agencies, particularly the marshals, TBI, Blount County, and there were others that were involved as well. But there were times in the command post that I couldn't have told you who worked for who, because they were working so well as one team. Probably the most collaborative team effort that I've seen in my 41 years of doing this.
And you obviously work with law enforcement outside of Tennessee. Most recently, the case of Shawn Williams. He was a suspect who was he escaped from Greene County and ended up in Florida.
Correct.
On the run for a month.
Yeah, and our Smoky Mountain Fugitive Task Force is out on the streets every day serving a warrant of some sort, and most of the time those are low profile situations. You don't really hear about them on the news in many of the cases, but there have been several high profile ones in the last few months, and Shawn Williams was a very high-profile case just because of the circumstances of the alleged charges that he has against him. And then there was another one just before Shawn Williams, Jason Dockery in Anderson County, where he killed his girlfriend and threw her out on the side of the road, and then we were up to Virginia and back to Tennessee. Another situation with a guy out of Mississippi that we received a call from Mississippi authorities that the suspect might possibly be in the Knoxville area, and he had shot 4 people in Mississippi. That was also in September. So we've had several high-profile manhunt type cases just in the last few months.
Well, we're going to take another quick break on Inside Tennessee. Some last thoughts from Don Bosch and Marshal Jolley right after this.